son played at Aquinas.
Yeah.
We at the paper we rent a house for the Masters. And it's the guy who's the athletic director at the Aquinas School.
Oh, Joe McBride?
Yeah.
Okay,
we
yeah.
rent his house. So we try not to wreck it.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a lot of kids, so he's probably used to it being wrecked.
All right. All right, we're now joined by Georgia's own Scott Parel here at the Mitsubishi Electric Classic, presented by Venture. Just to start, how does it feel to be back here at TPC Sugarloaf this week?
That's great. It's always, great to be in Georgia. I've lived here so much, over 50 years of my life, and I love Sugarloaf. I've usually do okay here, come close a couple of times, so I'm looking forward to being here.
Awesome. Stan, go ahead if you're ready.
How's the game shaping up?
It's coming around. I hadn't been playing terrific. I played okay to start, and then I struggled a little bit, but the last few weeks I felt like I'm pretty close. So.
You find something last week? You had a top 25?
Well, my putting, I've been struggling with my putting pretty much all last year and then the beginning of this year, and so I've just tried to simplify things. That's usually what it takes, and I felt like my putter's closer to where it used to be. So we'll see.
These greens out here require a little bit of putting.
Yes. Well, but it's grass that I like. We've got this at home. Where I play at Augusta Country Club and stuff that I grew up on. So the grass itself is something I'm familiar with. Yeah, these greens are tough. You gotta try to be in the right spot for sure. So, but they're in fabulous shape. So you miss putts out here right now, it's your own fault.
Well, it looks like there's no storms or anything weird happening, so like a great week for golf.
Yeah, I know it's unusual, unfortunately, for us. We always seem to run into something here. So yeah, the week looks fantastic. A little bit of nice, decent warm temperatures, and not a whole lot of wind, and not a whole lot of threat of rain. So yeah, I know everybody here is, all the players, we love coming here. We just always are worried about the weather, and when we see a good forecast, we get excited.
Well, I wanted to get into your background and how you got here. It's just not the typical path to the Champions Tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get from Michigan to the University of Georgia?
Well, I was just born in Michigan. My parents moved us down here to Augusta when I was 7. So, and I grew up in Augusta basically. From 3rd grade on. So, we ended up here through my dad through work, and go to University of Georgia, and just this is home for me. I know my bio says I'm from Pontiac, Michigan, but I'm not really from Pontiac. I was born there, and that was about the end of it. So, but yeah, it's an interesting path. I didn't play golf in college, and really didn't have any aspirations to really play golf in college. I wanted to go to Georgia, and I knew it wasn't the player, a good enough player at that time to be able to play golf at Georgia. I didn't want to even try to walk on. Walking on there kind of means, you say you're on the team, but there's really not a whole lot else that comes out of it. And so I just wanted to concentrate on going to school, getting my degree. I got a degree in computer science. Wanted to work in the IT industry, which was pretty new back then in 1986 when I finished. So, so did that for 10 years. Honestly, I've never really had any inkling of thinking about being a professional till I was probably like 30 years old, and I started playing a lot of really good golf, amateur stuff. I contended actually up here in Atlanta a year. I don't forget what year that is. I was leading, I think, going into the final day of the State Am. Didn't play very well, but made it to the round of 32 in the 94 U.S. Amateur. So when I started playing golf, and basically just being a weekend golfer, but still being able to compete like I was. We're fortunate in Augusta. We've got such a great, at that time we had such a great run of amateur events all summer long. We would play like 9 or 10 events in all the courses in the area every weekend basically during the summer, and then we'd have like a Ryder Cup match between Georgia and South Carolina, since we're right there on the border, and so there was a lot of good amateur golf, a lot of good amateur competition just right at home. And I had a year in 95 when I think I was player of the year there. and was shooting a lot of really good scores. And some guys at my club at home were like, "Hey, you know, you ever think about turning pro?" And at the time, I'm already married and I've got 2 kids. My wife's not working because I've got a pretty good job at home, and she's just taking care of the kids. And I was like, "You guys are crazy. I mean, I can't quit a job with a steady pay." And but I said, "Well, we'll pay for you to go to Q school and see how it goes." So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up taking a week off of work, vacation, and went to Q school, got through first stage at Harbor Club, went to second stage in Florence, in South Carolina, Country Club of South Carolina, maybe. Didn't make it through there, and then went back right back to work and kept working. But after I did that and I started evaluating my golf versus guys who, that's what they were doing all the time, and I was basically writing code 60 hours a week and playing golf on the weekend, and kind of hung in there, with them okay. I kind of got to where I was like, you know what, maybe I need to think about giving this a shot. And I just talked about it with my wife, and she was one that basically said, I'm like, you know what, Mary, I'm not going to do this unless I know you're 100%. And she's like, you got to do it. She said, I don't want you to turn 50, and have, been working for 25 years in a cubicle, and then, think, well, I wonder what would have happened had I done this or had I done that. So she said, you got to do it. We'll figure out a way. We'll make it work, And she was the one that basically, pushed me out there and said, you got to give it a shot. And so I did. I quit my job, I think, in July that summer, and started playing mini tour golf, and went to Q school. I never played well enough to get out of second stage until 2002. So that was like a 5-year stretch where I played nothing but mini tour golf all around the southeast. I would leave home on Monday, or we played usually like Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'd leave home, play 3 days, drive back home, be home on the weekend. And so I did that for like 5 years, and then in 2002 I finally said, all right, this is it. This is going to be my year. Either I'm going to get some kind of status or I'm going to stop. I've got to go back to work. And I had kept my hand in it enough to where I could go back to work in what I was doing before. And I qualified actually at Setting Down Creek here, was low guy to qualify for Bethpage Black that year for the U.S. Open. So that was my first U.S. Open that I'd gotten in. And that kind of, even though I played really poorly, it was just, I got such a vibe there of being in a U.S. Open, and I, for whatever reason, that spurred me on to get status. So I got to final stage that year, and then I had status the following year in 2003, which I thought was a great thing. But then I think I played 18 events and might have made 4 cuts that year. I mean, I really struggled, but it gave me a good idea where my game was and what I really need to focus on, what I need to work on. And so I just kept grinding away, and I think I played 12 years on what's now the Korn Ferry Tour, off and on. I had a few years where I didn't have status, but in 2013 when I won on the web.com in Wichita as a 48-year-old, that kind of was the big, I would say, the big milestone for me, because at that point, I'm already 48. The chances of me getting on the PGA Tour and really having a lot of success that late in my life was pretty slim. So I was like, you know what, if I can just figure out a way to get out here on the PGA Tour Champions, I think I can do okay. So that's what I did. I went to Q school when I turned 50, and I didn't get through the first year that year, but I went in January starting doing the Monday qualifying, and I Monday qualified for 6 in a row, every week. Play when I get in, then I'd go to the Monday, do the Monday, and I think I ended up playing like 14, 15 events maybe that year, and finished 40 something on the Schwab Cup, which gave me some kind of status. But I went to Q school, and then I won Q school that fall, and since then, up until this year, I've been exempt pretty much every year. This is the first year now where I've kind of having to fight for my status again. Finished 51st on the Schwab Cup list last year. Had some health issues, had a couple of things going on with my heart and whatever, which didn't, help me much last year. But I'm feeling good now. I mean, my game, I feel like I'm in a good spot. I just need to get starts, and I've been lucky enough. Tournaments have given me some chances. I've Monday qualified in I think in Tucson. I Mondayed in there, and so I'm just going to keep trying to get back to doing like what I was doing when I first started out here, and not feel like I'm on easy street so much. Maybe, I got to work a little harder. Not that I wasn't working hard, but for a guy like me, I kind of knew going into this what it was going to mean for me to be able to stay out here. Is I've got to play well every week, every year, and if I don't play well, then I know I'm going to lose my status, and I'm fine with that. That's the way it should be. I understand what this tour is about. It's mostly about the guys who earn their way out here through the PGA Tour, and that's their right, and that's the way it should be. For guys like myself, and Stephen Alker's an unbelievable story. Obviously, he's earned his way to be out here way more than I have now forever, because he's won so many events. He's got so many points, and he'll be able to play out here all that he wants now. But for guys like me, you got to play well every year, and I understand that. And I've been super blessed to be able to be out here for 8 years. I mean, I would have never guessed that I would have won 4 times and been a regular guy on this tour for 8 years. Not that I didn't think I had the game, but it's just so hard. I tell people all the time, it's so hard just to get on this tour for a guy like me in the position I was in. When you get out here, if you play good golf, you're going to stay out here. So it's a matter of, can you be consistent when you're in your 50s and not get injured and not have health issues? Every year you've got to be good. You can't have an off year, like Bernhard Langer. If somehow he had an off year, he knows he's going to play out here as long as he wants. Somebody like me, if I have an off year like I did last year, it's going to be a struggle the next year, and I've got to play better to stay out here, and that's just kind of the way it is.
I would think that makes you relatable to people, though. They see a guy like you who's come out and made his way, and he's done well.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to guys, especially in like these events when I play in pro-ams with guys, and they all do a quick little Google search on me, because they obviously probably haven't heard my name, and they're like, "Wow, you didn't, 31 years old before you turned pro," and you kind of give them that perspective on it, and they're like, "Yeah, it is. It's a cool story." Is it a story that sponsors care that much about? To put in tournaments, maybe not, but for the average guy, yeah. I mean, it's a very intriguing story. It's a story that, like you said, people can kind of relate to, but they see, hey, this guy worked in the real world, like I did for 10 years. So, yeah, it's neat. And like I said, I've been so fortunate and so blessed to be able to do this for a living, and have some success at it this late in life. I mean, it's a blessing. It really is.
Was there a moment when you realized, hey, I'm good enough to be out here. I do belong.
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first got out here, I was a little intimidated. Obviously, I mean, I'm warming up on the range next to Fred Couples and these guys that I've watched on television forever, but what I found pretty quickly is that when they play with you and they realize that you can play, they don't have a problem with you being out here. You know what I mean? Like, they feel like you feel like you belong as long as you're able to play and compete. That's kind of how it works. And so when I first got out, like I said, I did 6 in a row, and like my 5th one in a row for Monday qualifying, I think Bernhard Langer came up to me on the putting green, and he's like, "You're here again." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you have to qualify again?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, they just should start giving you spots." And so when somebody like that, when you've played with them and he recognizes that, you're good enough to play on this tour with us, that kind of is like, okay, I belong out here. I don't have to keep proving myself every week that I belong. And I kind of got that way maybe last year a little bit, because I wasn't doing as well, and I put more pressure on myself trying to prove that I belong. And at some point you're just like, hey, I've won 4 times out here. You don't win 4 times by luck. Maybe once you do, and guys maybe make some mistakes somewhere and you get lucky and you win, but you don't win 4 times on pure luck. So I think after I won probably the 2nd time, out in Sherwood, I felt like, okay, I belong out here. I finished third on the Schwab Cup that year, and so from then on, until, like I said, until you start to struggle again. I mean, golf is a very humbling game. It'll humble you, and so yeah, I'm back working at it again, and I hope I can, get to where I'm in contention a little more regularly, and that'll mean I'm playing good golf.
The wife made a good decision.
She did. Well, then, my famous thing that I always say that that Mary likes to tell people is, she's like, yeah, my husband was a 20-year overnight success, right? So you always hear about people being the overnight success. It only took me about 20 years to be an overnight success. So.
Anybody ask you to write code these days?
No, but the funny thing was, I played in the Pro-Am this week on Monday with some guys who own a company like that, and I knew they were kind of IT, but I didn't know how into the stuff that, what kind of stuff they were into. So when we were sitting in there after we played, and they started talking to me about stuff, and all this stuff started coming back in to my head about SQL, and I told them I used to do some COBOL stuff, and they're like, oh, we do still maintain COBOL, and so, nobody's asked me to do any coding, but it's kind of neat to think back on it. And I enjoyed doing that. I was pretty good at it. I was having, I had decent success as a professional IT guy. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't golf. I love golf, right? I mean, I didn't love being a database administrator. It was something I was good at, and I didn't hate it. But, I'm passionate about the game of golf. I've always loved golf. And to be able to do something you love and get paid for it, it's incredible. I mean, it doesn't even really seem fair to the average guy who's grinding away at a job, and trying to make things and trying to get by doing whatever he can. It's like I said, it's been a blessing. So.
Yeah, there's not 20 people gathered around your cubicle. Where's you going to put that?
Right, right. Yeah, is he going to forget the semicolon there? Yeah. No. But that's, you got to just have to get used to that. You're under the microscope out here in your job, but that's just part of it. I mean, it goes with the territory. All right.
Thanks for coming.
Great.
The only other thing I was going to ask is playing a tournament here in Georgia. Obviously, you went to the University of Georgia. You have ties to the state. Is there anything extra special to play in this state, or are they all the tournaments?
No, for sure. I would love. I mean, I would say, beyond a major or the tour championship, this would be the #1 tournament I would like to win, for sure, because I have more people here from home and friends and family that will be out here than I do normally. Normally I'll have maybe a handful of people here and there, people that I've met along the way in other places, but I have a lot more folks here interested in watching me, and you obviously want to do well in front of your friends and family. Maybe a little added pressure, but I usually do okay here. I don't usually let that get to me too much. But yeah, I would definitely, like I said, behind our majors out here, this would probably be the tournament I would pick to win.
Do you have anything here?
Yeah. Obviously, with the unique career path that you have, do you have another athlete, maybe in another sport, that's kind of taken the same career path as you, or something that you kind of look at for inspiration?
That's a good question. I'm a huge sports guy, so you would think I would. The only thing I could relate to would be like, the story of the guys, and unfortunately I don't even remember the gentleman's name, but when they made the movie about him, The Rookie.
Yes.
Kurt Warner? Well, no, Kurt Warner's another one as well.
Quaid.
But Dennis Quaid, where he kind of was, coaching high school, whatever, and then ended up, his kids, can you believe a movie or not? But then ended up going back and pitching in the major leagues for a couple of years, I think, and having decent success at it. But no, I've never really, because, and the reason is golf. That's what makes golf so unique, right? I mean, you've got guys competing in their 60s at a high level and getting paid to do it, right? I mean, there's not 60-year-old baseball players and football players, and that's what's so unique about our game is you can do this as long as you're physically able, and the ball doesn't know how old you are. I mean, that's what I know Bernhard always used to tell me. He's like, the ball doesn't know how old you are. It doesn't matter, right? So it's unique in that sense. I mean, and the other one I would say would be the guy for the Eagles what was the one? Mark Wahlberg played that guy.
Vince.
What was his name? It started with a P.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would be another. And I love both those movies. Are very relatable, to me. So, but yeah, it's hard for me to pick anybody else out just because it's so unique to our game.
All good.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, great.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, no
Appreciate
problem.
your time.
Thank you guys. Yep.
It was
All
kind
right.
of